All right, so here we are starting 9.2. Just a reminder, MrMathWell.com, if you go down to chapter 9, the videos are not all on there yet, but they will be when you go back and check here. So please check for your homework and for any handouts that you may have missed. They'll all be on here. Okay, so we're working on chapter 9, 9.2 today. All right, so this is the start of your notes here, okay? And of course this chapter is about probability and statistics, okay? You guys are ready to go here? You got your notes in front of you? So potential problems with collecting data is what 9.2 is about. This is not a very calculation heavy chapter, right? We're talking about statistics, so there's numbers involved there, but we're talking mostly about collecting data, using data, that kind of thing. So you'll see that there's a lot of writing in this chapter, not so much calculation. All right. So what's the goal here? To describe how the collection of data may be adversely affected. So the word adversely means kind of negatively or in the wrong direction kind of thing. An adverse effect is an effect that is not expected and usually negative. Okay, so the first example says, suppose your friend asks you, who do you think will win the Western Hockey League, that's the WHL playoffs? What might affect your answer to this question? Okay, without looking at the bottom part of this page yet. Just think about that particular question. What might affect your answer? What kind of factors? Or what kind of assumptions is the person asking you making? Let's think about it that way. Anybody? When someone asks you a question like that, what are they assuming? I think they're actually expecting an answer. Yeah, they're assuming you watch hockey, right? Yeah, that's huge, yeah. Who do you think is going to win the playoffs? I don't follow the playoffs, someone might say, right? So what might affect your answer would be, hey, do I even watch hockey, right? Does this person assume I'm a hockey fan? Okay. I played hockey. I don't pay attention to the WHL as closely every year as other years. So I might not know. I might not know who's in or what the standings are. Maybe I haven't looked at it for a while myself. So you know about hockey, you watch hockey, that kind of thing. So that leads us to asking ourselves other questions about maybe survey questions or about collecting data. Are we asking the right questions, but are we asking the right people? Are we asking them the right way? Are we asking them at the right time? Is the use of language appropriate? And all these sorts of things. So there's lots of little factors that we need to consider when we're asking questions or when we're collecting data. So that's what we're going to focus on today. All right. So yeah, the answer that you might put right here for this one is right. What might affect your answer to the question? I'm not a hockey fan, you might say. Or am I following the playoffs that year? Or do I know anything about the league? I might have a good answer to that question. I might have a guess. I might not know anything, okay? So you want to write down just some thoughts there about even what the assumptions are that person's making. Okay, so some things to think about. Do you have a good answer to that question? Are you following the league standings? Do you know enough about the teams that are still involved? That kind of thing. All right, so what are some potential problems? You have some blanks here on the left, the identification of the potential problems. The first one that's important, really important to consider, is bias. Now, you may not know what bias is, but bias is sort of an unconscious or conscious sort of leaning towards a certain way of thinking. Okay, so if you ask a question in favor of a topic or in a way that gives your opinion through the question, that's not a good question. So, for example, first of all, what does it mean? The question influences responses in favor of or against the topic of the data collection. For example, a person might ask, don't you think the price of a movie ticket's way too high? So this person has a bias against the current ticket price. You can tell by the way it's framed, even by my tone of voice. There's bias there. So they're looking for an answer that would support what they already kind of think. They have a bias against this, and so that might influence how people respond, right? Especially if it's a very passionate topic, or if it's a really polarizing subject, if you ask a question like that, they might be inclined to say, they're a little, I'd say it's a little high. But if you ask the question very, flat in tone and not tipping your hand to what you think, if you ask this question a little bit more like, so what are your thoughts on the current ticket prices for movies these days? Do you think they're too high or too low or just right? So if you kind of balance that question so that you're not influencing them that way, do you understand? You see how those two questions are a little bit different? So that's, and at the end of this chapter, you guys are going to be starting on a project, and you're going to be doing a project of data collection and analysis. So this is all very important. So you're going to be thinking of ways that you can frame your question properly. Okay. The second one is use of language. So the use of language in a question could lead people to give a particular answer. So an example, if you ask, don't you think the price of movie tickets is too high? The question may lead people to answer yes. So your bias is coming through the question, but also the language. You're suggesting in the question, look at what you see here when people read that question or hear that question. The price of a movie ticket is too high. Do you see that right there? It's right there. So that use of language right there is very leading, okay? It's very, it could skew or adversely affect the answer. So here's let's see how well we did with this one. Do you think the price of a movie ticket is too high, too low, or fair? Okay, so that's exactly what we had suggested in the first one to eliminate the bias. So that use of language would help you eliminate bias, okay? So that's important. Okay, timing. What about timing? So when your data is collected could lead to a particular result. A survey conducted to find opinions on the need for a vehicle to have winter tires. The results may be different if the survey is conducted in August instead of February. Okay. People might not be thinking about that or have any recent experience with winter driving. If you ask in August, they'd be like, winter tires? I don't need them. I don't have. Yeah. They're forgetting about, the near accident they had last February, right? Maybe. Or if it's, if it's in February and it's on the news, like accidents and you see accidents and people sliding around and it's a particularly just bad season for that kind of thing, then more people will be thinking about tires and thinking that maybe that's a good idea. So timing is important when you ask as well. Okay, privacy would be another potential roadblock to a valid or a good sort of approach to surveying or to collecting data. If the topic of the data collection is personal, a person may not want to participate or give an untrue answer on purpose. Anonymous surveys would help with this, okay? If your question, if what you want to find out is slightly personal at all and a person giving you their true answer in front of you would lead them to some discomfort or embarrassment, you have to be sensitive to that. And you have to try and work around that. So it's okay in many circumstances to ask questions that are slightly private. You have to be careful with this. You can't be focusing your whole project or your whole survey around very, very private things. That would be inappropriate. But even if it's how much time do you spend on the internet, right? That could be a private sort of thing to some people. They don't want to admit that they spend 5 hours on the internet every day. That's to them that maybe that's they feel bad about that's too high, but this is kind of what ends up happening. Or someone might think, well, I actually don't have a computer at home. I mean, I don't spend any time on the internet. I have not a very good phone, no data. I like 5 minutes? I don't know. They might not want to answer that either because it might seem uncool or something, right? So their privacy and how they would feel by answering that question would be important to consider. So people might not want to participate at all if it's a study, let's say, on weight. If it means stepping in front of a scale in front of other people, right? It's like, hey, you got a scale out in the hallway. Come on, everybody, help me with my project. Step on the scale. Somebody steps on, like, whoa, man, I didn't know you weighed that much. That's incredible. That they're just going to pass you by, right? So you're not going to get everybody, possibly. Just let me know if you have any questions. I'm trying to make this as clear as possible, but let me know if you have any questions about all this. Anybody have any questions so far? Anything we've talked about? Kind of understanding where we're getting at here? Okay, cultural sensitivity. Cultural sensitivity means that you are aware of other cultures. You must avoid being offensive and asking questions that do not apply to that culture, if at all possible. Now, you may not know that someone does or does not participate in this activity if you're asking questions about Christmas, or if you're asking questions about what they eat, or asking questions about holidays or family traditions. You might not know, so that's okay. But if you do know, you might want to be careful in how you frame the question. For example, suppose you want to know the favorite method of cooking ham, and you said, please circle your favorite method of cooking ham, barbecue, bake, or fry. Well, this doesn't apply to everyone that doesn't eat ham or doesn't eat meat. Maybe they're vegetarian. So a better question might be framed this way. If you eat ham, name your favorite method of cooking it. So a slight little change there that would accommodate more people to be involved in your survey. And you might find that there's a large number of people that do or do not actually do this thing that you're asking about. And that might be something you could learn from as well. Like, oh, I thought everybody, went for a walk every day. Like, I thought, how many minutes a day do you walk? There's a lot of people that said 0. Wow, I don't get that. I mean, you got to walk from here to your car, don't you? I mean, it should be more than 0, but it's stuff like this. It's like, what are people thinking? What do you mean by a walk, right? Like, do you mean like an exercise walk? Do you mean a walk more than 2 minutes, or a walk for pleasure? What? Walk to work? What? That kind of thing as well. All right, ethics. There's just a couple more here, a few more. Ethics. Ethics dictate that collected data must not be used for purposes other than those told to the participants. Otherwise, your actions are considered unethical. So, and you guys might maybe think, I don't know if you guys think, like, some things are debatable whether they're ethical or not. And this example, I read this example and I wondered, I wonder how many students would see this as an ethical issue, honestly. It says this. Suppose you tell your classmates that you want to know their favorite snacks to help you plan your birthday party. Oh, hey, having a birthday party, what should I buy for us? And then you use that information to try and sell your classmates their favorite snacks between classes, okay? So you asked your friends a survey. You found out that for some reason the Bounty Bar, which is like chocolate and coconut, is like the favorite bar of, the chocolate bar you can get down at Dollarama for like 87 cents. That's your classmate's favorite chocolate bar, and you're like, wow, I did not know that. Just think of how I could just run my business out of my locker at noon hour with 1,000 Bounty Bars. I'm gonna be rich. Okay, so that is not ethical, okay? To use that information to prosper yourself at the expense of your friends, which they give you that information for a completely honest and different and neutral purpose, okay? But hey, but he's rich? Hey, but he's rich. Oh, but if you get rich off, it's okay. Yeah. See, that adds to the unethical nature of the situation, right? Oh, it's okay as long as I get rich. Oh, yeah, that's okay. I can kind of do that. That's all right. So if you tell your friends, hey, listen, I am thinking about selling some things at noon hour out in the playground, which probably you shouldn't do anyways at school. That wouldn't be good anyways. But if you're telling your friends, hey, I'm trying to run a business, I'm trying to buy some chocolate bars that I could sell to people, what do you think would be a popular chocolate bar? Oh, I don't know. I think me and my friends, we like the Bounty Bar. Why don't you buy some of that? Okay, great. So you see the slight difference there, right? Right? It's like, hey, what'd you guys do in the weekend? Oh, no, we all went to 7-Eleven and bought Slurpees. Oh, okay, that's cool. So then someone uses that information to kind of further prosper themselves. Like there's ethical debates to be had, but in this process, please consider the ethics of the situation. Okay? So we have hands up here. I'll take a few questions. Do you have a question or comment? Why is it wrong? Well, because you're getting the information for one purpose, which is very neutral purpose, right? Your friends did not know that you're trying to get rich off of them. So that's not right? It's kind of like being sneaky. If you're being sneaky, right? If you're being sneaky for a different purpose than what you're letting people know that you're asking these questions for, being sneaky is often the same as being unethical in that situation, especially if you're prospering or if someone's getting rich off of it, right? That kind of thing. So it's kind of like you have to be kind of open and honest about the purpose of things. Yeah. Okay. Right. Like if you're doing a study on weight and you make people stand on the scale, which you shouldn't do, right, in front of everyone in the hallway, and then you put up a big poster and list all the names of the people that are technically obese according to the standards of World Health Organization. Like I'm not looking at you. I'm not looking at you. Okay, but do you see how that's not right? Like, hey, I'm doing a project. You want to tell me your weight, and then you list all these people. Like, oh, we have so many obese people in our school. I'm like, whoa, now that's cross. So when you cross a line, this is a big debate. I get it. Ethics is always a big debate, but consider that in your process. All right, let's move on. Cost. Okay, you got to consider cost. Sometimes collecting data costs you money, even if it's like printing questionnaires, or if it's you driving somewhere to go ask people something, or driving around to check out gas prices, or if it's you're looking at you're counting the number of people at the playgrounds in in your neighborhood or whatever. So it might cost you something to collect the data. You have to consider that. If you're willing to buy a pack of paper from Staples and get people to see how well they can, what kind of paper airplane can you make, and you hand out 100 sheets of paper. You got to buy the paper. You got to somehow acquire that paper in an ethical way, right? So you have to consider all that. Does that make sense? So some surveys might cost you nothing if you're just asking people, and you're writing down in your school notebook or whatever you have that you bring to class. It might not cost you anything, just a little time. That's fine. But time is another thing that you have to take into consideration well. Okay, so the last one is time. It's more so the timing, I think, of asking things, but obviously time is considered. Well, there's, I guess, timing we talked about, right? Here's timing. So this time would be the amount of time it takes to collect your data. That you need to consider that as well. So a survey that takes an hour to complete may be too long for most people. Okay, this would limit the number of people willing to participate if you were doing a survey, right? I got 5 pages of survey here. You guys want to do this for me real quick? It'll take you about 45 minutes. No, thanks. If it's a quick 1-minute survey, they might want to do it. Here's another thing too. Please don't do this. I've had students do this I'm going to make a survey, they said, and I'm going to email it to every student in the school. No, you're not going to email it to every student in the school. Why? Because most students don't want more emails, and they're not interested. So you can't just send out a mass email. And the other thing is, I'm going to send out 100 emails to everybody, everybody in the school here, and then I'm just going to sit and I'm going to wait for all those surveys to come back. And then this has happened to me. Kids are like, it's been 2 weeks, no one has responded. What did you do? Well, I sent out a mass email 2 weeks ago, like at 3 a.m. Okay, and what have you done since? If nothing's come in, what have you done since? Well, I'm just waiting for people to get around to answering my email. Okay, so again, you don't just send a mass email and then you have no responsibility anymore, okay? This is not how the world should work. It feels like it sometimes when I see 75 emails on my computer every morning, and I'm like, okay, I guess I have all this work to do that people just would, it feels a little, right? So if you're sending something like that, people are not going to get to it. You're going to get maybe 5 people respond to you. So you might have to have a different approach. Maybe approach some of your friends or make an announcement in your class or something. Say, hey, listen, I'm doing a survey. How many of you would be willing to participate, right? Take their names, or just say, I'm going to send you out an email. Please respond if you can. To give somebody a heads up. You know what I mean? So take that into consideration. Don't just lay all the responsibility on the people you're wanting to get information from either. This is your project, so you got to do the bulk of the work. Remember that. Okay. There may be others. There may be others that are not on this list. These are the ones we're going to focus on. I think this is a pretty comprehensive list. But do you have any questions or any thoughts or anything that you think also should be on this list of potential problems in collecting data for a survey or for some kind of statistical project like this? Is there any questions or anything you think we should consider that's not on this list? Seeing no hands, hearing no questions, I will move on to the next page. All right. Okay, so it should be on your page, the example 1 there. Is that the next thing that you have? Awesome. Okay, so for each survey question, explain why a problem may occur and the effect that it would have on the results. Suggest how each problem could be avoided. So let's get some more practice here. See if you can identify one or more potential problems from the list on the previous page or other things that you just think of, and then possible effects and how to avoid it. Okay, A survey is conducted to find out if citizens think the local government should provide more money for youth activities. The question asked was, would you support an increase in taxes to create more skate parks? Okay, what are your thoughts on that question? Okay, no, well, it is connected to the problem, I would say. A survey is conducted to find out if citizens think the local government should provide more money for youth activities. So this person asked, would you support an increase in taxes, because how's the government going to pay for it, to create more skate parks? So it is connected, but if you want to expand on how you think it might not be connected very well, that might be a problem. So do you want to add anything to that? What about it do you think says, well, it's not really connected? What part of that?
Because I think it's going to be used for a lot better purposes other than skateboarding.
Okay.
I think only a small percentage would use these.
Okay. So let's talk about that. So what you said was, youth activities is what the goal here is to find out, right? Do you think, would citizens support the local government providing more money for youth activities? It's fair to say that this money is going to come from taxes, okay? So people are paying the government to do their programs. That's good. But your issue was with the specific language of skate parks. I think I would agree with that there are many more other youth activities that should be considered. Now, is this, what part of, like, what on that list from the previous page would this, what kind of problem is this? What would you say? Use of language, sure. Yeah, this is very specific. And so language is maybe a problem there because that does not encompass all youth activities. Very good, yeah. Anything else?
I don't know how much of a problem this is, but it says youth activities, and a lot of kids, unless you have a job, which not usually till you're like 16, you don't actually pay taxes, I guess.
Okay. So if they're so if you're asking teenagers about this, right? Okay, so that's a good idea. That's a good thought. If you're asking teenagers, they might say, "Of course, we want more skate parks because I like skate parks and I don't pay taxes." Right? Yes. So what category would that be in, do you think? Where would that be? Would that be under here? Would that be actually, that might be an argument for another section, I would say. Like the audience, like where on this list, privacy, cultural sensitivity, ethics, cost of, I think that, I think we could put audience under here. I don't think that that's really, who are you asking, right? I like that. Are you asking the right people or the appropriate people for your question? Yeah, I would say that audience should be on there. Let's add that. Because the audience doesn't directly, I don't think, fall in any one of these other categories. So are you asking the appropriate people? Audience. Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to say audience because that's a very good point. Now, we could assume that they're asking only tax-paying citizens, but we don't know that. Audience. Now, I would also say, just to speed up the process here, I would also say that there might be some bias in this question, right? Can you imagine maybe a skater person, right, that likes skateboard? Can you imagine them saying, would you support a tax increase for more skate parks? Like, as they're like there with their skateboard in their hand, like, for skateboarding? You want to do it? Like, you're kind of tipping, like, okay, this person wants me to say yes. Do you know what I mean? So it could be bias. We don't know what this person looks like or what they sound like or how they're asking. But this could be a biased question because it's directly kind of throwing skate parks in your face there, right? So I would say maybe some bias too. We don't know what time this is asked, so it could be timing. Maybe it's in the middle of winter. People are like, I don't want to think about skate parks. Kidding me? I got other things in my mind. I need them to plow my street. Can't drive my car down my street. So, Okay, so possible effect of the results. Okay, you could have, the wrong people answering. You don't, Possible effects of the results. Okay, they would not be valid, okay, due to the bias, the language, and the audience. So not valid in that. So you may get more yes votes depending on who you're asking, or more no votes depending on the timing or whatever. The bias that's included there may sway things. So a balanced question. Okay. how to avoid the problem, how could we fix the language problem, the audience problem, the bias problem? How could we fix that? What would your thoughts be? Probably want to rewrite the question a bit, right? What would you say?
Less specific because so it's not like there are these 8 specific parts where it's like people, citizens or children will maybe be okay.
Okay, so you change the skate parks part, which we've highlighted here, right? That's probably that would contribute to the language and possibly the bias. So how could we reword this problem then? Would you support even increase in taxes? Like when people say increase in taxes, that's another thing we didn't talk about, but increase in taxes, as soon as you hear increase in taxes, like for me, it's like, oh, wait, what? Oh, gross. Something doesn't feel right. Increase, you're gonna raise my taxes for what? Right? You guys don't pay a lot of tax. I know when you buy your Slurpees and stuff, maybe you do, but property taxes, okay? I pay a whole bunch of property taxes in my house. So if they're gonna increase my taxes, it's a big deal, okay? That's hundreds if not thousands of dollars for me, okay? Not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or thousands of dollars when my property taxes go up. So that's another language thing. So why don't we say, just to avoid that negative feeling about increase in taxes, say something like, would you support more government funding for youth activities such as, you could say such as skate parks or such as some other things, right? Like other programs, evening programs, weekend drop-in center programs, things like that. So we would want to reword the problem. So something like this: would you support more government funding for youth activities in this community, such as skate parks or drop-in centers or sports programs? So a little more detailed, although a little more general as far as what youth activities would be. Increase in taxes, that wording may turn some people off right away. So you could say government funding instead of increase in taxes, because that's just a little less volatile, even though people would know what you're talking about. And then maybe even something like in this community, so people have a sense that, hey, we're talking about our kids, our community kids. We're talking about improving our community. So just letting them know a little more details about that. Now you could say, oh, that's unethical to say that this is going to help you. Would you support this because it's going to help you in your community? Okay, well that's a question, that's a point. But if it's in the community, you might want to just give more information like that. So I can see that both ways as well. All right, we are spending a lot of time on this first one, I understand, but I think if we fully flesh this out, it's going to make things a lot easier. You're going to have more thoughts. I think you're going to be able to suggest lots more things if we dig deeply into this. So we'll go a little bit quicker now for some of these other ones, okay? But a survey is conducted, so B, to find out the level of school spirit. Students are polled about their level of school spirit after the soccer team wins the championship. Okay? Can you imagine? Right? Or whatever the chants are. Right? Soccer chants, whatever they are. Can you imagine? It's like, hey, do you have any school spirit right now? Yeah, man, we're the best. Yeah, we're going to win the world. So, possible problem with this one. I don't know if I've laid my case out there, led you to the water here to drink, but what do you think might be a possible problem here?
The timing.
Timing, yes, timing, exactly. Were you going to say something more? Okay, yeah, timing. Now, students are polled. Okay, so let's think about this. They're students. That might be the only appropriate group, I guess, if it's school spirit, right? There would be maybe some staff and teachers, but you're mostly concerned with students, so maybe the audience is not a big deal, because you're going to ask students anyways. The type of students that you're asking there, though, I want you to think about this. If you're asking people at the soccer game after they win the championship, now you're only asking soccer fans, right, that have a proclivity or a sort of an inclination to actually come out to a game, to cheer for their team. So they already have a heightened level of school spirit, right? So this audience might be an issue here too, I would say, because you should ask this to the regular, maybe a little more apathetic student as well in the school if they have school spirit, to get a balanced sort of response, right? So timing, I would say audience. Yeah, timing's a big one though, for sure. Audience in the sense of, is this an appropriate sample? And we're going to talk about samples and stuff like that in another section. So audience to some degree, I would say. Yeah.
I don't know what problem this is, but also like level of school spirit is like subjective. So it's like
Yeah.
one person may think, oh, that's like really school spirit, but someone's like, that's not school spirit at all.
Yes, very, very good. Yes. So, what is school spirit? So, how is this asked? So, maybe even the language of this level of school spirit. We don't know what the actual question is, right? We don't have the actual quotated question here. But you're right. So, the use of language, I would say as well, about, what is school spirit and how do we quantify that or how do we judge that, right? Because someone that, wears all the gear and goes to all the games, they may have I'm kind of like so-so with school spirit, but somebody else would be like, dude, you're like the most spirited person in the whole like world. So it's pretty, the subjectivity is there, yeah. I actually think that if we go back to this list again, like I kind of like thinking about that whole subjectivity, where would that be on here? Use of language, I don't know if it quite fits there. Ethics, cultural, like the level of subjectivity might be a problem as well. So to be honest with you, I might add to this level of subjectivity, or even just subjectivity. And like I say, this is not a comprehensive list, obviously, because we're adding to it. But yeah, so is there, or are there, let's say, are there standardized responses? I would like to say that. Are there standardized responses?
That mean like 1 through 10 or something?
Yeah, even a 1 through, so 1 through 10, if you said, on a level of 1 to 10, what's your school spirit? That's better. But still, what is a 5 compared to a 6? Or what is, one person's 7 might be another person's 5. You know what I mean? So but that helps. You're right. You are absolutely right. So if you put numbers to that, are there standardized responses? Can that be quantified? That's the way you would say that. To put numbers, attach numbers to it, that's called quantifying something. Putting numbers to it so that we can kind of see the strata there. Very good. So audience and subjectivity. There's a couple good ones too that I would add. Okay, and I'm gonna add that then too, subjectivity here. Good. Okay, so possible effects of the results. Okay, so you would get probably this is so technical, way more yeses here, right? Way more yeses. How do you spell yeses? Yeses.
What do you want?
Yes.
This is a good question because I would be tempted to put apostrophe s, but apostrophe s is possessive, right? The yes doesn't own anything.
I read it the other day and they spelled it with an ES. I'm not sure if that's
Like yeses, I know, doesn't that look weird? Yeses. I think it should be ES because if you have one yes, but you have multiple yeses, it's not apostrophe because the yes doesn't own anything
Yeah,
or
it
possess anything. But you wouldn't want to just put, here's yeses. That doesn't look like yeses. That looks like yes. That's what that's like. So I think that ES probably is the proper way to write yeses. Oh, whoa, this is not an English class. Hey, let's back off here a little bit. Whoa, now, let's get back to some numbers. Right? Okay. Sorry, have to talk about language a little bit in math too. Okay, how do we avoid this problem? Well, we could ask at other times other than just after the big game and the big win. You could ask different types of people, sports fans and not sports fans. You could maybe try to quantify the responses, a scale of 1 to 10. You could even help that further by saying a 1 is, I don't cheer at any games, I don't wear any, school shirts, I don't care at all when a sports team is playing or when a club is playing. And then 10 is, I come out to all the games, I try to cheer, I have clothing, I have, I paint my face sometimes, right? You could kind of help them out, be a little less subjective that way too. Okay, so I'm not going to write all those down, but how would you address each of the concerns? Okay, that's what this is. How would you address these possible concerns? Okay. All right. We're getting on in time here. Let me just see. We've got 2 more examples and then our assignment. Okay. So let's go through these ones a little bit quicker. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you guys to do these. Do these next 2, and then we'll talk about some things in a few minutes, and I will get your responses. I will put some of my own responses down, and then we'll talk about them. Okay. So example 2 and 3. Please go ahead here and do on your own, just like we've done the first 2, and then we'll take a look at that in a few minutes. Okay, so for some of the possible problems, you're saying maybe the audience is considered, if we ask, each household, there may be only one representative from the household, which may be just the person that answers the phone, or that reads the email, or that, gets the thing in the mail, or whatever. That's good. So the audience would be one too. I would say the biggest ones would be cost and time involved to survey every house in Saskatoon. Whether you're dropping off, a flyer, you got to pay for the flyers, the time it takes to get people to drop off a flyer in the mailbox of every house in Saskatoon. That would be, probably too big. Also, cultural sensitivity. Maybe, you'd be asking a lot of people who would have no interest in purchasing that stuff or don't know anything about it. So, you want to ask the right questions to the right people at the right time, the right way. Okay. Okay. So, what possible effects did you guys come up with that these problems might present? Well, if we look at the cost and the time involved, I'll just zoom in. I'll just unfreeze and zoom in on mine here. If we take a look at the cost and time involved, then obviously it may take way too long to survey every household in Saskatoon, and may cost way too much money. And by that time that you get all the info that you need, it may be too late, right? You may have missed your window of maybe starting this business. So that's not going to work. Again, you want to ask people at the right time, the right way. Okay. How to avoid the problem. So I would say, and you guys can add to this if you want, maybe use a sample of people, not the entire population. Okay, a smaller sample would be best. One that would be representative of the entire population as much as possible. But in this case, if you're trying to open up a place where you sell specific types of crafts, you might want to focus your sample of the population on people that would actually be interested in coming to your store. So that's why I would say maybe you would ask people, a sample of people at a market or some kind of cultural event where potential customers would gather. Okay, right? If you're going to open up this kind of specific shop, I would like to know if the people that are actually going to buy things would be interested in having a store in their city. So, you know what I mean? You don't want to ask people that would never ever set foot in a store like that. You might be wasting your time. So that might be good. Anything else that's not up here that you think would be a good response to any of these questions? Okay. All right. Okay. And example 3 here says, Antonio wants to find out if there's a relationship between household income and how much people spend on Christmas presents. Identify any problems Antonio may encounter and explain how she could deal with the problems. Okay, so possible problems might be what? Privacy. Yes, privacy, I would say. Maybe people don't want to, say how much money they make, and B, how much they spend on Christmas presents. Maybe they feel it's way too much, or maybe it's not enough. Okay, what else? Ethics, okay. How would ethics play a part in this?
She's not doing it for a good reason. She just says that she just wants to find out.
Okay. So ethics, if she's going to use this information, depending how she's going to use this information, yeah. If it's just for research, just for info, probably it doesn't appear that she's going to be benefiting from this in some sneaky or way that's not divulged. That's not told. But maybe she might use this to tell you know, the mall or whatever. She might say the mall. And a lot of people are spending a lot of money on Christmas presents, and so you might want to up your advertising there in this area because these people spend a lot. Yeah. So if she uses that for something, so possibly ethics, we don't really know what she's using it for. So there could be other possible problems that are not mentioned here. I probably won't mention here. We'll just stick with what we can maybe see a little more directly in the problem. But that could be a problem. You're right. Was there any others though that you get from this? Yeah. Okay, cost. Okay, yeah, cost could be something. I mean, depending on what kind of survey they're using. Sure, let's focus on the words here in the problem that maybe are a little more obvious, but what else? Okay, cultural sensitivity, yeah. I would put that one down. Why? Right, and it's not an ethical thing. It's like, oh, you don't celebrate Christmas, you're weird. You know, it's not like that. But it's like, why would you spend the time and the money and the energy to ask people that don't celebrate Christmas at all, right? Yeah, so... yeah, that might be something that you want to deal with there too. So those are two big ones. Any other ones that you think are mentioned here or really implied here?
I mean, because if it's not anywhere around Christmas, you may have no idea how much you spent for Christmas.
Okay.
Or you may not even be thinking of Christmas.
Yes. So again, these are kind of like the other ones. Very good considerations. We don't know when this was asked. If it says Antonio asked in July, then the timing is like, oh, we know that's bad timing. But yes, if he asked in July, might not be a good time. If he asked in January, people would know how much they spent, right? That even November, it's like, well, they haven't maybe finished their shopping and such on. So yeah, so timing could be, we don't know for sure, but were you gonna say anything else? Or,
Maybe like bias.
Okay, maybe bias. Okay, depending on how this question was asked, yes. So how much money did you spend on Christmas presents this year? You know, like, should I be spending a certain amount? I don't know. Why do you ask? You know, like that's kind of a leading question, or you're making me feel uncomfortable because I feel like you're asking this in such a way that you're looking for a certain response, and so that that could be. I'd say these are the big ones, but I love the way you guys are thinking. There could be lots of other problems here. This is exactly what I'm looking for, this kind of thinking. So those are the two big ones I'd say. Possible effect on the results. Well, you wouldn't get really the info that you need, and you may be wasting your time. Okay, I'd say something like that. People would be hesitant to respond, and you may not get a lot of responses. You may be wasting your time. How to avoid the problem? Maybe you can ask people at the mall that are Christmas shopping, if you know that they are Christmas shopping, or maybe you ask people, hey, are you buying any Christmas presents this year? If so, do you mind if I ask you just a few questions for a survey? Yeah, okay, so ask the right number of people, or the right people, sure. So center in on maybe a sample of people that will give you some good information, okay? What else?
Make it anonymous because these are personal and kind of private questions.
Yes. Okay, and then make it anonymous. Yeah, anonymous. It's a tough one to spell. Anonymous. Okay, anonymous. Okay, anonymous. Yeah, those would be two good. And again, if timing was an issue, if cost was an issue, then we would deal with that in their own ways. Excellent. Okay, I love the way you guys are thinking. I love your responses. That's very, very, very good. So 9.2, these are the questions that'll get you to start on. Don't have a whole lot of time in this class left. It's a bit of a longer lesson today, but these are really good things for us to talk about. Appreciate how you're thinking on this. So that says 3 to 8, 12, 13, and 15 from your Pearson Math Makes Sense textbook here. And you may get started on that. I will give you some time tomorrow to finish that. So you should probably try and get a few questions in and done so you can finish up tomorrow in class.